Hello everyone and welcome to the Commexis Cast Daily, all the news you need to know from our inbox to yours. Today's show is all about Facebook's newest tactic to fight fake news. Hello everyone, I'm Matthew McGrorty, the videographer and podcaster here at Commexis, and today I am joined by the lead strategist at Commexis, Phillip Brooks.
Hello.
So today we're talking about Facebook's newest tactic to fight fake news. They detailed this in their Fighting Abuse at Scale event in San Francisco.
That's a real snappy title.
That is a real snappy title. And they also have the @ at the @Scale event. So there you go. So most of this information comes from a TechCrunch article by Josh Constine, who was, I believe, there at the event discussing it. So to give a little history before we get into what the actual tactic they're using is, Facebook has done a couple things in the past to fight fake news, relatively, I would say, unsuccessfully.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that they mentioned in the article is that it actually had helped kind of, some of the things they've done had actually helped proliferate the spreading of this fake news just by making it more, kind of stigmatizing it, making it actually made people click on it a little more. So that's a little, counterintuitive, but, again, tell people what not to do and they're going to do it.
Yes. So speaking of that, they at one point had put red flags on articles that they believed to be fake news or to be false in some way, and that is actually what made more people want to share these hoax stories, either because they found them to be interesting hoaxes, or more likely because they did not agree that these stories were false. And then on the other hand, after that didn't work, they came out with some more fact-checking. So a lot of it was, hey, this article might not be correct. Here's some fact-checking related articles and stuff like that. And that didn't necessarily work as well. So the new tactic that we're going to be trying, which I actually think is quite interesting, rather than identifying these stories as fake news, they're going to be shrinking the size in which they appear on the newsfeed. So, for example, and you'll be seeing an image from TechCrunch itself, their comparison between these two things. Normally when you share a link on Facebook, it's actually quite large. It's about, I don't know why I'm using my hands to try it's basically like a big rectangle.
You'll see this on the screen. So
so it's a big rectangle, and it's got typically a nice header image, and it's got the title nice and big and readable. But for the stories that Facebook deems to be inaccurate, they will be much, much smaller. I believe it was about 10 times smaller. And then in addition to that, those articles will have a related article section underneath them that is showing fact-checking for that piece. Now, what I particularly like about this is it is a very subtle way to get people to not either notice or probably unlikely to click on or read something in a way that I think is so much different in comparison to all the other things that they've tried in the past.
Yeah. No, I feel like, the problem really here is that Facebook is to use a terribly cliche statement, they're between a rock and a hard place with this, because they've essentially created this problem for themselves by not stepping in earlier in the process and making a more, definitive stance on this content. And I'm not necessarily sure that there was a way to do it the right way. But, to me, I don't think any feature is going to be draconian enough, short of starting to ban people that keep sharing stuff that's fake. But this is obviously a step in the right direction, simply because it's going to be more effective than what they were already doing. I did like that there was some mention of a dynamic feature in this, meaning that the more people reported this as fake news, the smaller that the images might be from there. So I thought that was interesting in that it's doing some sort of crowdsourcing to be able to to say that this stuff is not accurate. But to me, I don't, until you're just basically you get a 3 strikes and you're out rule for sharing content that's fake, and then your account's banned for 30 days or silenced for 30 days, you're shadow banned, whatever, which older folks might not understand, but if you're on Reddit or anything like that, you probably get a much better understanding of how that would work. But I just think that, again, this is going to be a small step towards, improving this situation, but I don't think it's going to fix anything ultimately, just because people are in a lot of ways you might want to edit this out later, too dumb for their own good.
Okay, so one of the things that Facebook is also doing is that they are going to be incorporating some machine learning into notifying and analyzing these links to find out what might be inaccurate. So right now they're using 20 fact checkers across multiple countries to fact check their news. And they're going to be sort of streamlining the process of what gets added to the queue for these fact checkers to look at. So the way that they're going to be doing that is they will analyze these stories and they will find stories that might already sort of be related to another story that has already been deemed false. That way it can get pushed up to the top of the queue for these fact checkers to very quickly go, yes, this is false. We've already looked at this, et cetera, et cetera. So that's one way they're going to be doing that, hopefully to get this at a larger scale. They also went through a couple different ways that they're going to be fighting fake news outside of just the separate link sharing that they shared at this event. So the first is account creation. If accounts are created using fake identities or networks of bad actors, they will be removed. Asset creation. Facebook looks for similarities to shut down clusters of fraudulently created pages and inhibit the domains they're connected to. Ad policies. Malicious pages and domains that exhibit signatures of wrong use lose the ability to buy or host ads, which deters them from growing their audience or monetizing it. False content creation. Facebook applies the machine learning to text and images to find patterns and indicate risk. Distribution. They're going to be limiting the spread of false news by working with these fact checkers to shrink the size of these articles. And together, Facebook hopes that with all of these processes, they will be able to reduce the spread of false news stories by 80%.
Now, here's my question. Does anybody else feel like 20 people, based on the volume of content that's on Facebook over however many billions of users, is 20 people going to be enough to...
It's not 20 people.
It's 20
organizations.
20 individual organizations.
Yes. Okay. That was actually a little unclear from the article, but I'm assuming they're using fact-checking sites as
I knew that they had a series of fact-checking sites. I mean, how do they determine which goes to what site based on the country? So they must have one nominated for each country or multiple.
Something like that.
Because I mean, I guess my point really was going back to, besides the volume of content, the fact that they're using machine learning to sort these requests as they get to the fact checkers. I'd love to see some of what the algorithms use. I mean, it must be sort of a weighting scale. Okay, it comes from this domain that we know has previously been accused of sharing stuff, so that's a point. Here's a user that shared it, that's probably a point for them. That kind of thing. So I'm just curious. And obviously we're not going to get an answer to that.
Unfortunately.
But I would love to know how they're figuring that out, because I would like to know how many people are actually getting, how much stuff is actually getting in there, these queues, to be manually checked, because still my assumption being that it was 20 people, clearly wrong, but it still seems like a light amount of content to be checked. I mean, it's not a lot.
I think that's a fair point. Unfortunately, we're never going to see the back end of this, because once we see the back end of it, it would immediately be able to be...
It would be the end of Facebook at that point.
But I mean, I agree. There's definitely going to be a scale of some kind, and I would be interested to see how they're going to be doing it. But either way, I mean, I think that's basically it for today's show. But I mean, any final comments, I guess, on this in terms of Facebook and their...
No, I think I sound critical, and that's just because I'm always curious how these things get determined, and I just I know that, to me, once they start actually doing this the way they should be doing it, it's going to cost them a lot of money, and so I don't think they'll ever go that far. But I do respect the fact that they're trying, and I think that we all should as well, and give them some opportunity. So if you see something like this, make sure you're reporting it as fake news, and so we can give these tools that they've put in place the best chance of working and the best chance of trying to fix this problem. Because again, there's billions of people on this platform. The better it is for everybody, the better it'll work for the world, and the better we can use it as an advertising platform. So I'm not being entirely altruistic.
Yes, that is absolutely true. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in to today's episode of the Commexis Daily. Check us out on Facebook, Twitter occasionally, Instagram, and also on our YouTube, and take us on the go on the Apple iTunes Store.
And we're not fake news, so don't downvote us.
Yeah, wait. Yeah, don't downvote us, please. We're good stuff. So check us out on all of those sites, and if you can listen to our podcast on iTunes Podcast Store, TuneIn, and Stitcher as well. Thank you very much for tuning in. Have a great day.